All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I am your producer and co-host. And today I'm really excited to have Dr. Cassie Wilder here with Minneapolis Integrative Nutrition. Am I correct?
Minneapolis Integrative Medicine Center.
Minneapolis Integrative Medicine Center. So Dr. Cassie is a naturopathic doctor. And if you just want to start, talk about who you are, what you do, we'll start with that.
Yeah. So my name is Dr. Cassie Wilder. I am the owner and founder and the lead doctor, I guess, since I can say that now that we have a few more docs that have joined our team recently, but of Minneapolis Integrative Medicine Center. We're in Northeast Minneapolis. We are an integrative medicine office, which basically means that we bridge the best of conventional medicine in terms of Western diagnostics and lab testing, imaging, really working you up and finding the root cause of your ailments, and then also layering on integrative holistic approaches to those treatment plans. So using diet, using lifestyle, using herbs and supplements to really treat the conventional ailments that you have. So
very cool. Well, thanks again for being on the show today. We're going to be talking today about hormones because we know those are super important. We also know that's an area where myself and Dr. Mel aren't necessarily the most versed. So, when it comes to hormones, understanding how hormones influence our health and our well-being, where's a good place to start just for anyone who doesn't really have information on that?
Yeah. Well, I guess a good place to start is like just the definition of a hormone. I mean, a hormone, we say that word, and really what it can mean a lot of different things, I guess is where I mean with that. So hormones in general are just chemical messengers. They literally just get sent out by a gland to go tell another gland to do something, turn on, off, excrete something, stop excreting something. Like they're basically just chemical messengers that float around your body and do different things. So where we tend to focus a lot of our patient population is on female hormones and male hormones. So I would say about 80% of our patient base is female. So we can do female hormones today since that's more common in our practice. But basically we see a lot of women with hormonal imbalances. So in women, the predominant hormones are going to be estrogen, progesterone. And so when those get out of balance, they have different characteristics, different properties. And when they get out of balance, you can start feeling a lot of different symptoms and have a lot of different signs of dysfunction. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So, understanding, you're personally serving mostly women,
Yep.
And understanding that the two big ones, progesterone and estrogen, which I'm familiar with those words.
Are you? Okay.
I know what they mean. But understanding that hormones are something that essentially tell your body, it's something internally that your body telling another part of your body what to do at what time for whatever function it may be.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things you see when it comes to hormones or clients who are coming into your office, what are some of the signs that maybe someone has a hormone issue and that they might want to seek out some professional help?
Yeah. So in women, our hormones are very cyclical. So our bodies are really broken up into around 28-day cycles. It doesn't have to be that exact number, but a good common average number is 28-day cycles where our estrogen and our progesterone will be in different ratios at different times of the month. So it can make us feel like we're on some sort of like roller coaster, and you never know which part of the roller coaster you're on unless you're tracking it and really diving into the data. So I would say that a lot of our women, when they have some sort of hormonal dysfunction, they're noticing it right before their cycles come. So that fourth week of the month is really the predominant time of the month when your progesterone should be really high, your estrogen should be really moderate. And if they are out of balance for any reason, that's when you're going to notice the majority of your symptoms. So we'll get women who talk about insomnia, just difficulty sleeping during that week, rage, irritability, moodiness, whether they're breaking down and crying because they're feeling emotionally overwhelmed or they're snapping at their kids and husband for no reason. We'll get a lot of mood dysregulations, but then also things like acne is a big one. If you're breaking out, around your chin, on your forehead, those can be signs of hormonal acne. And then fatigue. is another really big one. So women will notice that they get extremely tired right before their period. So I would say that if women are going to notice hormonal changes in their body, it's typically right before that week before. So we call those PMS, or premenstrual symptoms. And they can talk a lot about, and they can show a lot about how your hormones are out of balance. And just describing your symptoms can help us figure out what might be out of balance or where to go.
Gotcha. So what you're saying, a lot of times those symptoms will kind of come in line with the cycle. And a lot of times that's a telltale sign that, okay, maybe there is a hormonal, would you call it an imbalance or just an issue?
Yeah, I would call it an imbalance. They're supposed to be in proper ratios, and different hormones peak at different times. So I would say if they're out of balance, that would be a good word to.
Okay. So, you have a client who comes in, hormones are out of balance. What is maybe your process, or how do you go about figuring that out? And then what kind of prognosis or care options do you work with, your clients that helps them see results?
Yeah. So I would say that our first thing to do is just talk to them, is to hear their story. So I really like to hear kind of like the chronological timeline of how things have been. So I think that's really important first, because usually this has been happening for decades. It's not usually something that's been happening for a couple of months and now suddenly they're worried about it. It's typically something that's been happening for a really long time. And also the timeline is really important, because a lot of women in our culture now will go on birth control at such young ages that they don't have any, like they don't have a cycle for several years, or depending on which hormonal birth control you are, it can suppress ovulation. So you're just not even ovulating for several years or as long as you're on it. So the timeline for me is extremely important. So from when you started getting your period until now, what has been your signs and symptoms, flow rate, consistency, PMS symptoms, like what has that been for the entirety of you having a, female hormonal cycle? So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that I like to go through first, is just ask a ton of questions, quite honestly. Those visits are 90 minutes, and a lot of people will get to the end and be like, wow, we actually really did need that 90 minutes to go through everything. So I like to also hear kind of the signs and symptoms and how they've been going on, because it leads me to figure out what lab testing you need. So a lot of people you'll see on the internet will just say like, oh, you sound estrogen dominant. Go ahead and take some DIM supplement and you'll be fine. Well, what I found in clinical practice is that's kind of irresponsible to just assume that your hormones are doing something, because you never know. The signs and symptoms of estrogen dominance sound exactly the same as progesterone deficiency. And by depleting your estrogens down to the level of your progesterone, yes, you're technically balancing them out, right? Like if you have 0 progesterone and 0 estrogen, they're in perfect harmony, they're in perfect balance. But that's going to give you a whole nother side of signs and symptoms and long-term issues, just as the same as kind of looking at where we want your estrogen and where we want your progesterone. So that 90-minute intake leads me to figure out what kind of labs do you need, and help you figure out what time of the month we need to get them checked. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So what I'm hearing is it's a lot of times people may have imbalances or things that start and you're not going to realize it for months or years down the road. Or if you do, you have these symptoms, you might just think that, well, that's just how it is. That's kind of how it goes. So
yeah, I've heard several women say like, I have severe cramping for 4 days before every single period, and that's just normal for me. When in reality, it might be normal for you, but that's not necessarily normal.
Yeah. And a lot of times, especially in our culture, we learn that we're supposed to normalize things that maybe aren't healthy or aren't means that we're unwell, but we normalize it as a part of our experience. And we just think, well, that's how it's supposed to be. So you really take the time to go back, understand someone's history and what's really going on before you're going to make any sort of diagnosis or do any sort of test to figure out, let's get a more longer understanding of what might be going on rather than just kind of jumping in and making assumptions. That's really important.
Yeah.
You mentioned doing lab tests. So what kind of tests are you doing? What kind of testing do you do with clients when they come in?
Yeah, so I like to Obviously, if you're like a female that's having hormonal imbalances, we can run your female hormones. So I'm a big fan of blood or serum-based female hormone testing for the mass majority of my patients. It's really cost effective. We can get a panel cash pay for under $100 for female hormones. And then looking at other things. So if we suspect that maybe you're not ovulating on a consistent basis because your cycles are going from 28 days to 35 to 19 to 28, like if it's doing really weird things, we can potentially think that maybe you're not ovulating on a consistent basis. Let's figure that out. Well, some of the root causes to not ovulating consistently are going to be PCOS, and thyroid disorders, so having hypothyroidism. And so in that workup, and when we're thinking about what lab tests do we do, sure, we can run your estrogen and progesterone, which is really important to figure out the imbalance. But at the same time, we always need to be thinking about the root cause, and we always need to be thinking about what other things can we look into that just in case your progesterone does come back low, we can say, it's because you don't have enough T3. So now it's not just, we need to, boost your progesterone. It's we need to fix your thyroid in order to fix your progesterone. So that's a part of that whole process of learning about you and learning about your history, is figuring out what other little details have you said that maybe might make me think of a root cause approach to why this might be low in the first place. So
yeah. Got it. That holistic approach is really important. Understanding that, maybe one test shows up where something may be deficient, but the cause of that is actually, something else. It's almost like taking different pieces of this puzzle that is our life and understanding, and as you mentioned, that root cause. So figuring out what is at the base of all these different things that might be going on that might all be related to one common root. So, take me through too. So, you had mentioned supplements are something that you do. What are some other ways that you work with people? I know, from watching, seeing your social media and Instagram, you're all about nutrition as well. Is a really important piece of people's health plans. So, tell me more about the different things that you provide.
Yeah. So when I first thought I was getting into medicine, I was really excited to go the naturopathic route because I was like, I'm going to save people from McDonald's and Burger King and all these different fast food chains, and I'm going to, save the world. And come to find out, that's not what I'm doing. It's because I find that our society and our culture nowadays actually has a really good understanding of basic nutrition. So a lot of the patients that I see have they've tried diets, they've tried different things on the internet, they've tried anti-inflammatory, like they're not eating junk. They're generally eating pretty well. And so when we look at someone's diet, we're always looking at, do they have enough carbohydrates and fiber to balance their blood sugar? Do they have enough protein to build and sustain muscle mass and keep them full long-term? So we're looking at kind of, I guess, the overall common theme of what this person's eating. And then I do have a registered dietitian who works with me. And she's the one who does a lot of like the custom meal planning, is what I like to call it. So I'm good at the therapeutic nutrition where, T4, your inactive thyroid hormone, is tyrosine and iodine put together. So what are some foods high in tyrosine and high in iodine? Put those together. That's what I'm really good at. What I'm not really good at is looking at like your macronutrient profile and making sure you're getting all your micronutrients as well. And so that's what she's really good at, and keeping everything very customized to what are you going to eat. We can tell you to eat cruciferous vegetables until the cows come home, but if you don't like cruciferous vegetables, then, our recommendations are, they're not going to help you. So she's the one that really puts together a lot of like the detailed plan that works with your budget, works with your likes and dislikes, works with your different eating preferences. So we have a lot of patients who are vegan, a lot of patients who are vegetarian, dairy-free, gluten-free, and for all good reasons, but that requires a level of specification and understanding. And then how does it also tie into your diet? So patients with adrenal fatigue and their diet looks a lot different than patients with endometriosis, and we're fighting prostaglandins and inflammation. So I just word vomited all that at you just to be able to say that it takes a lot of like bringing together of multiple different parts and putting together one plan. And that's where like the team approach between her and myself do a really good job at covering all of our bases.
Yeah, I love hearing that you have your specialty, and it sounds like hormones is big in women's health, and you have people on your team who can address other things like nutrition. Building off of that team mindset,
Yeah.
what other kinds of practitioners or um, providers do you work with, within your clinic, or do you refer with other people? What kind of health practitioners do you look for to partner with?
Yeah, so we partner with a ton of different types of practitioners, other clinics, and then what I find that my office is really, really good at is medicine and nutrition. So finding the root cause through conventional medicine and utilizing holistic therapies to treat them. So the people on my team, I have a nurse practitioner, and I also have another naturopathic doctor, and then myself as like the medicine component, and then we all work together with the Catherine, our dietitian, to really put together or be collaborative in that way. So our office, I find we're really great at medicine and nutrition. So if you tell me that your insomnia is due to, back pain, or that your shoulders hurt at night and that you can't sleep, well, that's not something an herb is going to help you with, right?
Yeah.
An herb might decrease inflammation and help your pain that way, but we don't do structural. We don't do musculoskeletal in that way. So that's where we have a lot of good referral partners, like Dr. Mel and Inspire Life, and like other, different massage, acupuncture, chiropractic, all the great things that go along with musculoskeletal. So we refer a lot for that. We're also not specialists in terms of like if you have some sort of lung issue or advanced heart where you need, to be monitored by a cardiologist or a pulmonologist. We have people in the community that we refer to for that kinds of help. So I would say that there is definitely room for we definitely are just like a part of someone's care plan.
Yeah.
So
recognizing that, people come to you and they have issues, and you're able to deal with many of them. And a lot of times if people come to you, if you spot something that, hey, this is not within my specialty per se, maybe within your scope and not your specialty, you're going to make sure that you find someone who is going to be able to serve them best. That's awesome to hear. It really comes down to the client's well-being at the end of the day. So thank you so much for sharing that. I have, just a couple more questions.
Sure.
This is my favorite question I ask every guest. So what is the one thing, or the most, maybe the most important thing you would share with our listeners when it comes to, what you do, or how they can just continue to live their best and most thriving life? Yeah.
I think I hear a lot, and it really gets me down, when I hear patients that will say something to the effect of, I went to my primary care doc, or I went to my doctor, and they just told me that, my fatigue was normal for having multiple kids and being a hard worker, like wanting to be a corporate mom plus a couple of kids just meant that I was going to be tired, or that I just needed to like lose a couple pounds and all my other symptoms would go away. They was really dismissive. So I think that's one of the things that I like to make sure that I want to share with a broader audience, is that if it's a concern of yours, it's a concern of ours, and that you should not feel dismissed by your doctor. You should really find another team who's willing to listen to you, take the time to work up your issues and work up your problems, and then also give you the type of treatments that you want, right? If you want conventional treatments, like if all you want is prescriptions, we might not be the team for you, because we're going to use herbs. We're going to ask you to change your diet. We're going to ask you to exercise. But that you should really, seek extra help. If you feel like what's going on with you is not normal, or you feel like you can feel better, find the team that will provide you with the services and the treatments that you want. So
I love hearing that. Yeah. Clients and us all as individuals, we know our bodies and we know what we want. And we know that there's many different ways to accomplish a same goal. So, feeling empowered in your journey and finding the right methods and practices that are going to work for you. So I thank you so much for being on the show and for everything that you do. I do want to ask for all of our listeners, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so I would say that we use Instagram as our soapbox to promote a lot of our tips and tricks, and also just provide free content to everyone. So our Instagram is at MPLS Integrative MC. And we try to post as much as possible, and we answer DMs about, what kinds of things and questions do you have, and what kind of content can we provide for free that might make your knowledge base bigger or life a little bit better. So that's probably the biggest place that you'll find us. We do have a Facebook, and our office email is hello@mplsimc.com if anyone wants to ask us questions or connect with us, further in person that way.
Yeah, awesome. And I will second what you said about your Instagram account. I follow it and I love it. I mean, the tips that you give on there, it's, like you said, free but really powerful content that anyone can start implementing just by following you guys. So I'll definitely spread the word. I'll put the information in the details of this episode. And Dr. Cassie, again, thanks so much. We tried to do this, I think a couple months ago, and we had a scheduling error and a miscommunication, but really excited to have you on the show. And I can see us definitely doing it again sometime in the future.
For sure. I'd love that. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And
thank
you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. See ya.
Yeah,
hey there, did you find value in today's episode? We sure hope so. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Also, hop on over to Facebook and join the Inspired Living community. There, Dr. Mel and I share health and wellness tips to help you live your most inspired and thriving life.
And as always, keep inspiring.